Tower of Babel. At first, all the people on earth spoke the same language and used the same words. As they migrated eastward, they found a plain in the Shinar region and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used bricks instead of stones and tar instead of mortar. Then they said, "Let's build a city for ourselves. Let's erect a tower that reaches the heavens and makes a name for ourselves. Thus, we will not be scattered over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people were building. Since they have begun to do this as one people speaking the same language, they will not be stopped from doing whatever they plan. He said, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand each other." Thus, the Lord scattered them over the earth and stopped the construction of the city. Therefore, the city was named Babel, because the Lord had confused the language of the whole world there and scattered them over the face of the whole earth, from Sam to Avram. The story of Sam's lineage. 2 years after the flood, when Sam was 100 years old, his son Arpachshad was born. After the birth of Arpachshad, Sam lived for another 500 years. They had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, his son Shelah was born. After the birth of Shelah, Arpachshad lived for another 403 years. They had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, his son Ever was born. After Ever's birth, Shelah lived for another 403 years. They had other sons and daughters. Ever's son Peleg was born when he was 34 years old. After Peleg's birth, Ever lived for another 430 years. They had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, his son Roy was born. Peleg lived for another 209 years after Roy's birth. They had other sons and daughters. When Roy was 32 years old, his son Serug was born. After Serug's birth, Roy lived for another 207 years. They had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, his son Nahor was born. After Nahor's birth, Serug lived for another 200 years. They had other sons and daughters. Nahor's son Terah was born when Nahor was 29 years old. After Terah's birth, Nahor lived for another 119 years. He had other sons and daughters. After the age of 70, Terah had sons named Abram, Nahor, and Haran. The story of Terah's lineage. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran had a son named Lot. Haran died in the city of Ur of the Chaldeans, in the land of his birth, while his father Terah was still alive. Abram and Nahor got married. Avram's wife's name was Sarai, and Nahor's was Milcah. Milcah was the daughter of Haran, the father of Yiscah. Sarai was barren. She had no children. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, who was Haran's son, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, who was Abram's wife, with him. They left Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. They went to Haran and settled there. Terah lived for 205 years and died in Haran. Call to Avram. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your relatives, and your father's house, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. All the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you." Abram set out, as the Lord had told him. Lot also went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, the goods they had acquired in Haran, and the servants they had obtained, and set out towards the land of Canaan. They arrived there. Abram traveled through the land to the oak of Moreh at Shechem. In those days, the Canaanites were living there. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." Abram made an altar there for the Lord, who had appeared to him. From there, he went towards the mountainous region east of Bethel. He pitched his tent between Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then he moved on from there toward the Negev, Abraham in Egypt. Due to the severe famine in the country, Abram went to Egypt for a temporary period. As they approached Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know you are a beautiful woman. Perhaps the Egyptians will see you and say, 'This is his wife,' and kill me, but let you live. Please say, 'I am his sister,' so that for your sake they treat me well and do not harm me." When Abram entered Egypt, the Egyptians noticed that his wife was very beautiful. The Pharaoh's men, upon seeing the woman, praised her beauty to the Pharaoh. The woman was taken to the palace. For her sake, the Pharaoh treated Abram well. Abram acquired sheep, cattle, male and female donkeys, male and female slaves, and camels. The Lord brought terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife Sarai. The Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why didn't you tell me that Sarai was your wife? Why did you let me marry her by saying, 'She is my sister'? Take your wife and go." Pharaoh gave orders to his men regarding Abram. Thus, they sent Avram and his wife away with everything he had. The separation of Abram and Lot. Abram left Egypt with his wife and everything he owned and went toward the Negev. Lot was with him. Abram was very rich. He had herds of gold and silver. Starting from Negev and migrating from one place to another, he went all the way to Bethel. He arrived at the place between Bethel and Ai, where he had previously pitched his tent. He went to the place where he had previously made an altar and called on the name of the Lord there. Lot, who migrated with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents. Their possessions were so abundant that the land could not support them living together. They could not live side by side. A quarrel broke out between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. There was a quarrel between the herdsmen of Avram and the herdsmen of Lot. At that time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land. In those days, the Canaanites and the Perizzites also lived there. In those days, the Canaanites and the Perizzites also lived there. Abram said to Lot, "We are relatives, so let there be no quarrel between us or between our herdsmen." Abram said to Lot, "We are relatives, so let there be no quarrel between you and me, or between your herders and mine. All the land is before you. Come, let's part ways. If you go left, I will go right. If you go right, I will go left." Lot looked around him. The whole plain of the Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt toward Zoar. There was plenty of water everywhere. The Lord's Supper was like this before he destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. They separated from each other. Abram remained in the land of Canaan. Lot settled among the cities of the plain and pitched his tent near Sodom. The people of Sodom were very wicked. They were committing great sins against the Lord. After Lot separated from Abram, the Lord said to Abram, "Look around from where you are, to the north and south, to the east and west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will multiply your descendants as numerous as the dust of the earth. So much so that if someone were to count the dust of the earth, they would be able to count your descendants as well. Get up, Walk through the land I will give you from one end to the other." Abram moved his tent and went to settle near the oaks of Mamre at Hebron. There he built an altar to the Lord. Abraham saves Lot. Meanwhile, Amraphel king of Shinar, Ariosh king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim. He waged war against King Bera of Sodom, King Bersha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Admah, King Shemeber of Zeboim, and King Bela, that is, Zoar. These last 5 kings had united their forces in the valley of Siddim, which is now the Dead Sea. These kings had lived under the dominion of Kedorlaomer for 12 years, but in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shaveh Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is by the desert. From there, they turned back and went to En Mishpat, that is, Kadesh. They took all the land of the Amalekites and defeated the Amorites, living in Hazazon Tamar. Upon this, the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, also known as Zoar, set out. These 5 kings went to battle against the 4 kings, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, in the valley of Siddim. The valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. Some of the men of the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fell into these pits while they were fleeing. The survivors fled to the mountains. The 4 kings took all the goods and food from Sodom and Gomorrah and left. They also took Avram's nephew Lot and his possessions, because he also lived in Sodom. Someone who had escaped from there came and informed the Hebrew Abram of the situation. Abram lived in the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner. They were all on Avram's side. When Abram heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he took 318 men born and raised in his household and chased the 4 kings as far as Dan. He divided his men into groups, attacked them at night, and pursued them to Hova, north of Damascus, defeating them. He brought back all the plundered goods, along with his nephew Lot's goods, women, and people. Melchizedek blesses Abram. When Abram defeated Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him and returned, the king of Sodom went out to meet him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's valley. The king of Salem, Melchizedek, a priest of the Most High God, brought out bread and wine. Blessing Abram, he said, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praised be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave Melchizedek 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself." Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I swear before the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or a sandal strap, so that you will never be able to say, 'I made Abram rich.' Only the food my men have eaten is excluded from this. And let Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, who supported me, receive their share."